Hello. If you're watching this video, you probably have some sort of vested interest in learning a bit more about how Dr. Peterson's voice works, its different quirks and whatnot, and perhaps how you can emulate it yourself, perhaps at a social gathering to entertain your friends or something like that, or perhaps you're just interested in voices just like me and you just nerd out about these things. Well, it's a very distinct possibility.
Alright, that's enough of that. My name is Reese, welcome to my channel, and in this video I'm going to be analyzing Dr. Peterson's voice, how it's evolved over the years, some of the things that my ear has picked up on when it comes to his voice, some little vocal tics and habits and quirks that he has that maybe you can take into account when you try to maybe do an impression of him, or maybe you just geek out about voices like I do, or you just want to learn everything you possibly can about Dr. Jordan Peterson, up to and including his voice. So whatever brings you here, I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. So when Jordan Peterson first came onto the scene, the thing that jumped out the most to me, and what jumped out to quite a few people, was how he sounds a lot like Kermit the Frog. This would be back in the 2016, 2017 era when his videos, when he was doing lectures, as you can see that I've got queued up here, were starting to pop off. And that characterization of his voice, the Kermit the Frog voice, that kind of back in the throat sort of like thing, that was a very accurate characterization. Because his voice, in a few short years, from 2016 to present 2023, has changed drastically. There's not so much that quality. So to hammer home this point, let's listen a little bit here to what he sounded like when he was giving lectures back in Canada.
I mean that you have to be willing, when you're negotiating, to have an alternative. You go talk to your boss, who isn't going to give you money, because everyone wants money, right? It's a competitive game.
So you can hear that he's giving a lecture, so he has to project a little bit more. And naturally, when you do that, your voice is probably going to get a little bit more higher pitched. You kind of want to reach across the room, and in doing so, you kind of have to strain a little bit, which kind of makes your voice a little bit tighter, which if you have a gravelly voice, that's lost a little bit. Because my voice at this kind of what I would call like room temperature volume, where I'm just speaking like this, there's a little bit of bass, a little bit of gravity to it. But when I want to project my voice like this, and I want to, reach across the room with my voice and make sure that I'm heard across the room, you kind of lose this kind of gravelly timbre that I have here, right? I don't know if that's the right word for it, but you get my point. So he sounded a lot more like Kermit the Frog back then.
Because he has to project across the room, and, his voice was a little bit younger too, so that certainly helps the issue. He's having to give a reasonable, intelligent lecture to his students who, are right here, and, well, he sounds a lot like Kermit the Frog, blah.
So he was younger, and he hadn't done as many speaking tours. I don't think he'd ever even done a speaking tour yet at the time of this video being filmed. So that's an accurate characterization of his voice back then. Now, he doesn't sound like this at all. He doesn't sound like this at all. And we're going to see why. So I would say the next thing to look at would be what his voice looks like now when he's speaking kind of at a similar volume that I'm speaking. Maybe even a less so. There's a lot more of a grandfatherly, gravelly quality to his voice. There's almost like a grandfatherly rattle there that was not there when we heard him speak like this.
You're going to have to go there and say, look,
that's Kermit. This is Kermit sounding now.
And now this is something else, right? Listen.
I wouldn't say much. We spoke probably for 20 minutes in total, not purely privately because there was other people around, but that just barely gets you to know the surface of someone like Musk, because he's an amazing person and God.
So now you can see that whatever the cause, be it time or just wear and tear on his voice, when he speaks kind of at this volume here, he sounds a lot different.
Well, he really brings the volume down, and, I would say that's really something, He doesn't speak as rapidly, you see, because, well, I don't know why. He's perhaps a little bit more subdued when he speaks like this.
You hear more the back there. So he has a different voice here entirely. His voice has really, really changed over the years, and that's something that I've noticed. Now, for the final exhibit, we're going to look at the in-between that he is actually able to access when he wants to, which is very interesting to me, because I don't know why he would be talking like this in this very kind of quiet, subdued way.
God only knows what's up with him, all things considered.
It's almost like, was he in a bad mood? What's going on here? I don't know. But it's very interesting to see how his voice can be like this. But this is how he acts when he's like a little bit more perked up and he's doing he is conducting the interview. So this might be a very interesting distinction to make, right? In the previous one here on Chris Williamson's podcast, he was the subject being interviewed. Now he's doing the interviewing. Notice the difference in how he sounds.
There's a very detailed a body of research laying out predictors of divorce among couples in psychotherapy. So maybe
now he almost sounds like his old self, but it's not quite there. It's not quite that like that. This is his old self.
Here's what I do. Here's why it's useful. Here's why you have to give me more money.
Now listen to this again.
You come for marital counseling. If one or the other partner or both rolls their eyes,
you can see, you can hear that gravelly catch there. So this interview where he's doing the interview is like the in-between state between this and this. This seems to be his voice's happy place. This is what he sounds like most of the time. So if this one
sounds a lot like Kermit, where, you have to conceptualize these archetypal structures, and it's like
where he sounds more Kermit-like and he's projecting a little bit more. This is where he's dead quiet and subdued.
Saw his new truck. He was taking people out.
Well, he saw his new truck. Well, he saw that, Elon Musk he's a very fascinating person, It's like, okay.
Now, this one here is like the in-between. The Goldilocks, the not too hot, not too cold.
During the sessions, which is a sign of contempt.
You can hear it,
There's
can't
a
you?
95%.
So it's very interesting to me how everybody has different voices. Everybody thinks, oh, you just have your one voice and that's it. Well, depending on the circumstance, whether you need to project, or even depending on the circumstance where it changes what kind of participant you are in the conversation. For instance, as we saw where he's giving this interview now, where he's kind of projecting more and he's giving more of an authoritative gravitas to his voice, whereas here, for some reason, he kind of shrinks into himself when he's being interviewed, which I find very interesting. It's kind of a peer into his personality. And this is just true across the board when you look at people, and you can learn to spot this in people if you take into what I've said into account here, that everybody has at least 2 to 3 different voices. And if you can learn to distinguish between them, you can understand maybe what is going on inside of their head. Because the voice is a projection of someone's inner world at any given point in time. And, the voice is a very powerful tool. And tool, I almost sound like Peterson there. That was weird. But you get what I'm trying to say. So I just find it very interesting. So I'll close with this. If you want to learn how to do a good Jordan Peterson impression, then I would say that the easiest of these 3 to mimic while getting across the point that you're doing a Jordan Peterson voice is this one here. This one, Kermit. Because you can be a bit louder with it, which allows for a little less nuance to have to go into the equation when trying to pull off the voice. When you can kind of project as if he is projecting in an auditorium full of students, you don't have to kind of dip into the nitty-gritty details as you would doing this, which is a very advanced impression, a very advanced Jordan Peterson impression. It requires a lot of skillful breath work and manipulation of your diaphragm and closing your throat at the exact right time, in conjunction with trying to do the Alberta accent that's still there, where this is a lot harder to pull off.
Well, I would say that this is a lot harder to pull off because, you have to have a certain croakiness to the back of your throat that you perhaps, you might not have, and, well, that's really something. It's no joke. It's like, okay.
So that's hard for a lot of people to do. You have to really, really put a lot of care and detail there. So this is easier. You kind of follow the conventions of wanting to do a standard Kermit the Frog impression. You kind of tighten everything up right here. You tighten everything up.
Like this, almost like you're being strangled a little bit.
But then you loosen it up so that you can get more air out. So
instead of sounding like this, it sounds a little bit more like this, and you can kind of talk.
So you kind of got to loosen that up from being strangled to just
loosening up right here, and
and then you introduce the Kermit kind of quality on the vowels, like
you can't.
So if you're going to say the word can't, you say
can't. You can't do it. Well, you can't do it, You can't do it, No.
So you notice it's the vowels, it's the A's, the E's, the O's, the U's.
No. Well, it's like, no. Can't. No. Well, you can't know. You can't know,
So that's how you do a Peterson that is passable at a party or just around your friends trying to do it. It's really, you just follow the conventions of the Kermit and then just apply his little accent ticks to it. And you can kind of pick that up by just listening to him talk for extended periods of time to kind of internalize those idiosyncrasies of his voice. So that would be my suggestion to you. Don't try to imitate this.
Possibility, probability.
It's perhaps a little bit more challenging because you have to bring it down to a certain level and, add a little bit of croakiness to it. And that's really something difficult for most people to do. And you really don't want to have to do something like this because, well, you have to take it down to a certain level. And perhaps you're not ready to do something like that because it's a very advanced technique. But, you can do something like this. It's like clean your room, It's like, why? I don't know,
So much easier, right? That's it, guys. I've talked long enough. Thank you for watching this whole video. I geek out about this kind of stuff. I love doing impressions. Let me know what you think down below. Was I spot on here with the 3 different voices? What other people do you notice have 3 different voices? Or 2 to 3. I would say people usually have 2 to 3 that are very, very distinct and can mean different things about what they're doing at the moment. This is a very fascinating subject for me, so if you want to see more videos like this, I'm happy to make them. I can do lots of voices, and I'm open for requests as well, some vocal analysis. So thank you again for watching. My name is Reese. Follow me on Twitter @ThePsyopCop, and that's it. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.